So I think we continue, and I'm very happy that I can welcome Mr. Jacopo Sertoli, who is the CEO of Select Holding Group based in Shanghai. And he will speak to us about welcoming the Chinese visitor. Please welcome Jacopo, please.
Good evening. There is a slight issue, so we can start anyway. Anyway, the presentation is what it is. Does it work? Yeah. So thank you very much.
The handset isn't turned on.
Sorry?
The handset isn't turned on. Can you
We will solve it. I'm Jacopo, and I am the president of Welcome Chinese. Yeah, better? Change? No. I am happy to be here, of course. I thank Tom for having me give the possibility to speak just after coffee break so everyone is awake. I thank Eric for having brought forward this great idea of the EU-China year, because I think it will work, and of course, thanks to the collaboration of Eduardo and under his guidance, it will be a success. Still not working. Are there any questions? I think it's very important that we present ourselves as a unity, as a one destination, because this will help, of course, it will be cheaper to a certain extent, which is always very good. We can get more traction because China likes big, of course, and we're a very big and beautiful destination. Each country should continue to do what they're doing, of course, under the umbrella of the EU-China tourism year. It's very important that this happens in this way. And we will go over how to welcome Chinese travelers. I think we should also understand why there are much more Chinese travelers coming towards us rather than us going towards them. How many of us have been in China for leisure? Okay. Not the Chinese, eh? Chinese, they don't count. Eh? Chinese don't count. It's cheating. But there are many more Chinese coming to us. Why? Are they more curious? Are our tourism boards doing a better job? There must be something. Of course, Europe as a destination is intriguing for them, and this is very good for us. As we have seen in the previous presentations, this was not yet. This is an element on which we should leverage, but we should not accept it as a fact and not work for it, because it would be a waste. We can do much more.
Okay.
Ooh, thank you. Which button? Right? That one. Okay, excellent. Now we're working. This is a unicorn. How many of you have seen a unicorn while sober? Good. These are Chinese travelers. How many of you have seen Chinese travelers, sober or not? So we have already established that Chinese travelers are not a unicorn. So they do exist. This is quite an interesting discovery, considering that China, which is the red one, is very, very big. And it's probably bigger than Europe. And it's also very beautiful, most importantly. These are just some of the places that you should be seeing in China. How many of you have been to Zhoujiaigou? Beautiful, fantastic. If you can probably get lost in the nature and avoid the big masses, it's a beautiful place. How many of you have been up north the Silk Road in the oasis of Turpan, where in the middle of the desert they produce wine? It is a beautiful country to visit, and the Chinese are traveling in China. This is outside China, the destinations where the Chinese would like to go. Of course, this is not our own statistics, because I would not trust ours. It comes from a very big company that is owned by Expedia, and this is hotels.com numbers. Not many Europeans. Also because around China, there are many beautiful places to visit. For example, from Beijing, in an hour and a half, 2, you are in Tokyo. Or from Hong Kong, in an hour and a half, you are in Vietnam. It's like for us. How many of you have gone to China compared to how many have been from the UK to Portugal. So it's normal that they travel in their respective area. This is not a mystery. Also because when they travel next to them, they are more understood. I mean, it doesn't take a lot to understand what the Chinese need, but nevertheless, it is a fact that in neighboring countries, they do understand the need of hot water. Kettle or not kettle, the fact that hot water is something that, at least for me, for example, has kept me alive in the past 10 years in China, is part of their culture. This is why we try to promote it both in hotels and airports, for example. Every Chinese traveler has a thermos where he puts tea. He brings from home, he just needs hot water. Let's give it to them. No, they're not asking a lot. Union pay. Imagine if you were traveling anywhere where you travel and you were not able to pay with one of your Visa, Master, or Amex cards. It's better to be able to pay instead of bringing cash. As Tom was saying previously, they also pay with telephones, which is incredible. We opened a new office in Shanghai, and there is a bar downstairs. So I went in the morning to have an orange juice. And of course, my Chinese is only good with drivers and restaurants, but not with bars. And there was an issue in paying. So I gave cash. And she said, cash. And so she hands me the telephone. I said, oh, she was a cute girl. I said, you want my number? Maybe. So I gave her. She looked at me really. I gave the card, no cards. I wasn't able to buy it because I'm not very good with technology. Then I saw the next guy and he was just showing the phone, doing it and going away. And it's true, in markets. I was in Beijing last week in the food and fruit and vegetable market. The stand, the lady with her hands dirty of soil, they pay like this. So there are some gaps that we would be, I think we should be encouraged to fill. As we were saying, safety is very important for them. And probably what happened this year in Europe has not been very beneficial for the travels that we want to promote, which is an even a bigger reason why it's very good that Europe works together to promote itself as a destination. This is where the Chinese would like to travel. The mystery of France always remains. Beautiful country. They do a very good job. They were able to sell to the world even the Côte d'Azur. Very nice, but very good job. Which is because they were working all together to promote that. So it's the same thing that we should be doing, in my humble opinion. In countries, we are still there with France and Italy, but most of them, again, are all around. The point that I'm trying to make is that there is competition from China itself as a destination for the Chinese travelers, Southeast Asia as a destination for Chinese travelers. So if we compete against each other, at the beginning especially, it's not going to work very well. It's not going to have a positive outcome. So it's very important for us to work all together. Again, let's take the French. The French are not selling Bordeaux or Merlot or whatever. They're selling French wine. At the beginning, they entered like this in the Chinese market. And today, French wine is the first thing that comes to mind when they want to buy wine. Then now they're doing Bordeaux, Beaujolais, and all of this. But that was a very good strategy. Because if we go back to the previous slide, which I don't know how to do, but China is very big. And Europe is as small. So if we try to sell the wine from the fifth hill on the left of the pine tree compared to the wine that is beyond the river but under the second hill, it's not going to work. There are several interests that the Chinese have, as we have been seeing in the previous presentations, because they are changing, they're evolving. Like us, everyone has different desire, everyone has different needs. So there is market for everyone. There is a possibility for everyone to sell its own product. But again, most of it is local. These are some things that the Chinese like to have. For those who have been to China, they will remember that when you go to a hotel, everyone is smiling. Maybe not everyone is fully trained or at the service level that we are used to, but everyone smiles, everyone is more or less happy. When you go in the room, you have always a toothbrush and you always have slippers and a kettle. It's a matter of habits. We're all the same, all the humans are the same, habits are what they are, and to offer simple things is what should be our mission, in my opinion. And so I am very happy to see when there are countries like Britain with Visit Britain program that is evangelizing on the need to understand better Chinese travelers and start to take some actions. When there are hotel chains that have their own individual programs to cater to the Chinese travelers' need. This is very useful for the common conscience to change a little bit. We can see there Australia up there because they have been doing a very good job in understanding this need, putting it forward to the industry. The industry has reacted. Of course, they are closer, but not that close. I mean, Australia is far from anything, even far from China, and yet they are a wish destination. They are closer, and they are perceived also as safe. This is what Welcome Chinese wishes to do. The useful thing to know is that this is not done by me. I'm usually kept in a closet. They take me out when I need to speak. But this is a program of the China Tourism Academy. Within the beauty and magnificence of the China Ministry of Tourism, there is a part dedicated to outbound travel. And this is the part with whom we are working. And it's them who created the standard. The standard is not an arrival point. The standard is a very simple tool that doesn't have to be seen, again, as an arrival point, but somewhere from where to start, from where to better understand the needs of the Chinese travelers, and from there to find the right path for each company on how to better welcome Chinese travelers. I mean, we're here discussing about Chinese travelers. The world is talking about it by the fact that in greater or lesser numbers, as Tom was saying, they are still a minority, but they exist. They are expanding, they are growing. As we have been living under the fascism of bacon in the hotels, I'm sure we will live with some steamed dumplings next to the bacon. I don't think that it's very complicated to handle. The project, of course, being a government-led project, has some strategic partners like UnionPay. The desire of UnionPay, of course, other than to dominate and conquer the world, is the one of distributing their payment gateways so that the Chinese travelers can buy the products that each one and every one of us wants to sell to them in an easier way. CCTV is a very useful tool, can be to promote the destinations or the efforts that are done. They have 35 channels and 1.5 billion viewers. They are a good marketing company, in my opinion. China 1000 is an interesting element because the schemes in China for the points or mileage are still a little bit underdeveloped compared to the American ones. And so the possibility of putting forward one's product with the excuse that is being labeled as welcoming for the Chinese travelers gives the possibility of catering to an audience that is traveling through the miles program. We all know C-Trip, and even they are evolving. They are creating their own Michelin star guide that is called Zmilin, where they are creating a selection of restaurants that are able to cater to the Chinese travelers. This does not mean that they are becoming Chinese restaurants, but this means that they are restaurants that are offering a traditional experience, a local experience, but catered to the needs of Chinese travelers. Other benefits that we're offering is for you to better understand and be trained to receive the Chinese travelers. Canadian, and we have a distinguished representative here of the company, David. It's useful to receive business intelligence because it's a market that's going very quickly. It's evolving extremely rapidly, similar to Tom's story of the rice. They are changing very much, very quickly, rightfully. And so we need to understand what it is that's changing and what they want. Lobster offers online training so that from your hotel or your shop you can connect and receive online training of what is useful to know when you greet a Chinese traveler. This is the certification. There are, of course, different standards for different categories, and the standard is not a limitation. It's not something that has to be feared of, and again, it's not an arrival point. It's a simple benchmark that gives a few details of what are the main things that can be useful. And this can apply both to the millennial traveler who has booked everything from his smartphone and is there with his girlfriend and friends and will go out for drinks and go out for experiences, but still will want to pay with his Union Pay, and if he has a kettle in the room, he'll be happy, to the family that brings the parents and they can have a Chinese television channel in the room and the warm breakfast in the morning. But these are the benefits. If you do efforts for the Chinese travelers, we would assume that you would want the Chinese travelers to know what you have been doing. If not, there is not really a point of doing it. So there are some distribution channels that have been put in place, for example, a dedicated website. Each one will have its own space. China Southern program, which I talked about earlier, Union Pay, has its own website where people can book online from that existing platform. And if you are part of it, of course, they will be able to find you and they will get a benefit from this, from booking from there. We did something quite interesting with this on the right-hand side with this company. They translate the menu, then they send to the company QR code that with WeChat the Chinese traveler can open. They can see the menu in Chinese. If you upload the picture, they can see the picture of your food. They can order. So on the left of the menu is in Chinese, they order. And then on the right, the order comes out in the detail of what they want, both in the language in Chinese and the local language. And they show it to the waiter, who can take the order. Everyone is happy. And we don't have a lot of technology in the middle, just the necessary need. Chinese social media, we saw some numbers before, 400, 500 million people using a smartphone. Inevitably, the more you use those channels to promote your product, the better it is. Another interesting thing that we do is that, of course, we do the big travel shows, but every month we go to a different destination in China, a different city, where probably you will never go even if you go and do a business trip in China, and we cater to those second and third tier city interest of knowing new things, new products, new destinations. And again, if is presented Europe as a whole, it will be beneficial for a lot of people, I think, because there is the desire to have content, to have things that, whereas in Beijing and Shanghai there is too much content, in second and third tier city there is less content. These are some of the companies that have participated already. We did some good work with the airports. Airports are very important because, of course, it's from there that we bring people in. And it's the first image that Chinese travelers receive of a country, of a destination. So if then there is an impact that can be done, and then there is work that has to be done with airline carriers, there will be more people, and more people means more clients for everyone. And if these clients are happy, then they will go back home and they will talk to their friends, and everyone will benefit from it, especially the Chinese travelers, and of course each one and every one of us. This is an interesting thing that we're doing with UNESCO. In China, the UNESCO brand is very well recognized because they're the second country after Italy that has a lot of UNESCO sites, that has the most number of UNESCO sites. And UNESCO, of course, wants to become more and more, not profitable, but to cover the costs, and to sell tickets for these destinations is interesting, these products is interesting because it's an interesting content, there isn't competition out there, and this truly shows the character of Europe. And I think that this is something that if we can continue to do it with UNESCO, it will be very interesting. Classic music is, of course, something that is in their mind. Shopping. This is for the kids is quite quite good. The parks, entertainment, leisure. It's true that, as Wolfgang was saying before, they come here to experience, but in my opinion, there are also a few people that come here just to have fun, and if they have kids, you can send them out. This is something that is good to know, because each and every one can have its own program, and the fact that there is something that is issued by the Chinese authorities is there to support the effort. So in the same way, it's a work that can be done with Europe to support the effort that Europe is doing. This is something that we did in Abu Dhabi. It's another interesting thing that the Middle East has developed as a destination after that Emirates and the other one? Etihad, thank you very much. Etihad have bought a lot of planes and started to make a lot of traffic. Then inevitably, more people have traveled to their destination. Is it as a long stopover, as a layover, or as a destination? And, of course, we're a Chinese company. The offices are in China. We have also offices in Europe, and we're here to support the European Union efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting, and I think very important part of the picture. So for the final part, so we kept the best for the last. Please welcome again Tom Jenkins and Eduardo Santander, Executive Director of ETC, and they will give us their view and their information on the Chinese workshops and the cooperation between ETOA and ETC with regard to the bridge project and to the 2018 EU-China Year of Tourism.
Good afternoon. Eduardo's going to talk after me.
Oh, sorry.
I beg your pardon, sorry.
Sorry, we can turn this off now.
Really, this is just to inform you about the tender that ETC and ETOA are going to be working on. Where's the microphone there? It's going to be working on really next year. The thing to do is to realise about World Bridge Tourism is it was an initiative, I think, derived from the European Parliament initially, which was handed through to the European Commission to deliver. They drafted the tender long before the 2018 EU-China Year of Tourism was a twinkle in anyone's eye. Its purpose was and is to increase flows of people from China to the EU. It's a very straightforward goal. The three mechanisms that are laid down to do this, to have a series of webinars, which will be conducted by Wolfgang here, to explain various aspects of the Chinese market to European suppliers. And we're going to be looking at a whole tranche of different things, but essentially expect to see a lot of webinars emerging early next year explaining what happens. We're also supposed to be running conferences, both to explain what the EU is doing to welcome tourists and to attract investment in tourism. And I think I might be allowed to point out that the fact that they're about to improve the visa regime for Schengen visitors to the Schengen area from China is going to be a step change in the viability of Europe. And it's a loud alarm call to Britain to try and do something about its visa system, which is almost beyond redemption bad. To have a 17-page visa form, which has to be filled out in English if you're Chinese, is almost unimaginably complex. And can you imagine how many visitors from the UK would go to China if they had to fill out a 17-page form in Chinese? It doesn't even bear thinking about. Anyway, the fact that the European Union are looking at the Australian model as a viable model will revolutionise the appeal of of Europe in China, and this is excellent news, and it's a brilliant initiative. And the other thing that we're to do is obviously explore the potential and nature of the Chinese market for European suppliers. And the other call was for us to have B2B meetings. This is something we know a little bit about. So, as I said, the webinars are going to be rolled out early next year. The first event that is scheduled to take place is in Shanghai on the 9th of May. It's just before ITB Shanghai, and we will be having a conference and workshop there. We will be bringing in 100 Chinese buyers with the assistance of Jacopo Sertoli and one or two members of ETOA, I hope. We will have 100 European suppliers. These suppliers will effectively be fully hosted. Quite important to know this. It's normally and actually restricted to SMEs, the selection criteria is being drawn up between ETC and the national tourist offices that make up the constituent members of the European area, I think is the right way of phrasing it. It's not restricted to European Union suppliers. If it so happens the national tourist offices are unable to deliver as many as 100 European suppliers wanting to go there, then we will look at alternative ways of finding suppliers to go there. The second event will be in London. It's on the 2nd of November. There will be a conference very similar to the one that you're here today, so it's going to be a similar experience for those of you who are already here. We're having another one next year. I'm already flagging it. And on the 3rd of November, inside GEM, there will be an additional 100 Chinese buyers on top of the 250-odd buyers that we will have in there. And there will be 100 European suppliers selected again by the national tourist offices and ETC to attend. That's really it as far as the program. Eduardo, would you like to say anything? Or do you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
I don't have any fancy slides, but I have a story to tell you. First time I went to China was 15 years ago. I was backpacking there. Things were very different. We were not carrying any cell phones. And I was really fascinated about the country, about the people, about the culture. And I thought I should learn Mandarin. I didn't. Biggest mistake in my life, I tell you now. I was paying a lot of attention of all the presentation we heard today. And I have the feeling that we're still not learning anything. It's exactly the same situation I was 15 years ago. We know the Chinese are coming to Europe. We know they want to come to Europe. We know what they want, and we are not doing anything for them. So, I mean, the market failure is so clear, and we're still fighting against each other instead of working together here. I think the World Bridge Tourism and actually towards the EU-China tourism year is a unique opportunity. And again, our role is not to forecast the future. We know what the future, we had Jennifer today telling us that the UNWTO forecast 10 years ago what we are now. And they were very conservative with the numbers. And now, what are we going to do? We're going to wait 10 more years? I think not. So, the European Union is now giving us the possibility, giving us also the financial means to put something concrete on the table. This is about business to business. The public sector has a role, and I think we are doing a role as ETC, as a promotion entity, but also the European Union has its limitation, its boundaries given by the Lisbon Treaty, and I think they are giving their best to stretch their limitations and to give us full mandate, to explore this market for sure. For the first time in my full career, I've heard from a politician in Brussels mention the word tourism, and that was from Juncker in China. So let's use the moment, please. Now, about the project, the World Bridge Tourism, I think this has to be based in 3 major pillars. First is something which is beyond our limitations and our responsibility, but it's very important, and it's travel facilitation. We know that to attract more Chinese people to Europe, we need to facilitate their visa process. This, we consider also the World Bridge Tourism and the EU-China Tourism Year is going to be a form of soft diplomacy, of course, to soften that process and to try to go towards a visa-free for Chinese travels to Europe. Hopefully, this will happen sooner rather than later. If we accomplish that, it's halfway already. The visa is going to be already halfway. But okay, this is not in our hand, and it's not a responsibility, Tom. Now, second, Wolfgang's and Jacopo's role here in this project, educational. I mean, people need to understand. You cannot do things, by chance or thing. I don't believe in chance or in luck. I mean, luck comes with a lot of effort. And I think we have put too less efforts in the Chinese market still. Because we still, that they are too remote, they are too less, they are controlled, the visa. No, I mean, if you don't do your work, nothing will happen. From nothing comes absolutely nothing. And last but not least, and this is where our role comes, Tom, you and I, and we are only the faces here. And by the way, I would like to thank you, first of all, the ETOA team organizing this event. Thank you, Serena, especially you, for all the efforts, and my team present here, and Teodora, Miguel, Jennifer, for all the efforts they have put in this project. And coming back to our role here, marketing. What is marketing around? I mean, we are selling a dream, and we know exactly. We have done enough market research, and we know exactly what they are expecting about us. The problem is that there is a huge mismatch. We sell them something that it's not wished, and they don't understand it or they don't like it. I mean, it's as easy as it is. If you don't like it, you don't buy it. I think, and Jacopo was mentioning in his slides, I mean, there are a couple of musts which are not difficult. What is so difficult in offering hot water? It's just that we are too arrogant to say, no, hot water is not in our culture. It's not, it's nothing. We haven't had it in our airports before. We don't need it. Maybe we need it.
You've got to heat it.
Yeah. That's it. So, marketing needs these two bases before. I think it's completely useless. It's a waste of money from the taxpayer, in this case, from the European Union. And it's a waste of effort from all of us if we don't tackle this travel facilitation and the educational part. Then we can do good marketing, I think. Here, and this is an appeal to all of you, we need the private sector. We need the private sector because our role is, of course, to promote Europe as a destination per se. It is demonstrated that in the mind of the Chinese, Europe is not a collection of countries. Despite all our nationalism, are proud of being Spanish, British, Italian, whatsoever. This is not understandable. Chinese don't give a about our political problems, regionalism, federalism, nationalism. They want to come here for simple reasons. They want to come here because of our culture, because of the links I've been explained. I think they want to come mainly also for shopping, and they want to be safe. I mean, there are 4 things that we have to take into account to be successful. How many people are in the room? We counted 130. I mean, I'm sure if we put a little effort, each of us, we will have a big effort here, and we will have a huge result. But please, the first step is to believe. China is far away only in your minds. Let's capitalize on this project. I think it's a unique opportunity. Eric was very conservative this morning, not explaining that there are, that this project works. It will be, be taken as a pilot, and to demonstrate that this is a model that we can apply for Europe in other markets also, in United States, which still we've seen in your slides, Tom, by far the most important one, but also Latin America and Canada, Southeast Asia, and so on. So I think that the public-private cooperations should be a reality and not, the speech that we are repeating years after years. And again, I'm getting tired of, of listening to even my own speeches saying, how good the Chinese market is and not doing anything. You are a professor, Wolfgang, so, I mean, the most important thing for someone from the academia is to see theories applied, and to see doing something, in this case for European citizenship, and for businesses. Because here, the final goal of the project is to create jobs and growth here. There is not, again, we don't have, like the Chinese, this feeling of having to impose anything or anything. This is a project which is about businesses and about to create and to also, to tackle all the issues that we're having here. Also, our market is changing. You remember last year we were reporting about Russia, and Russia, was a huge sorrow and worry for many of your members. And now, we have to find also other solutions. And I think China is the solution right now for that. Thank you.
Tom?
Eduardo, you spoke much wise words, and I must say that if you chose not to learn Mandarin, you learnt very good English. And I happen to know that your German's better than your English, so it's intimidating for the rest of us. I think the one thing, one area of caution, and it's natural to, when you're looking at China, to concentrate on China and for everything to be China-coloured. I think the thing that, just as a word of warning on a global scale for Europe, is that don't fall into, if I may use this phrase, a British disease trap, which is to look at your existing markets, notice that you're losing market share in those markets. And we are losing market share as Europe in Japan and North America. There is a sharp fall in the proportion of people in those markets coming to Europe from both of those places, and both are important. And say, well, look, we can make up the slack, we can take up some of the spare capacity by selling ourselves to new markets. New markets are welcome. Important, growing ones like China are vital. I'm not for one moment diminishing the importance of what we've been discussing today. But somewhere like the United States and Japan are almost like old friends. And we've got to learn why it is we're losing market share in those markets, and learn what it is that we need to do to correct that, because for sure as eggs is eggs, the same problems will start occurring when China starts becoming a mature market. And so we've got to grasp the opportunities that you're outlining with both hands, but let's not forget what lessons there are to be learned in pre-existing ones. We can have a discussion up here.
No, the thing is you're saying something that makes me always sick. The thing, like...
Think or sick?
Sick.
Oh,
I'm
right.
already a little bit, I have a cold, but which is, Europe is losing market share. This is very normal that we're losing market share, but we're not losing market share, we're losing competitiveness, which is a completely different thing. And the loss of competitiveness is caused by the inherent incapacity of working together. And again, here we need a team, and a team is not people working together, it's people trusting each other. And as Jacopo was saying here, French wine. This is, for me, it's the part of the president that it stayed in my mind. As easy as it is. I went to China a week ago, and this is where, in the menus you find, excuse me, you find, I think, 20 French wines, and the rest is residual there. So they did that job. And I know the French very well, and I know that they're very competitive with their own wines. And the Champagne regions competes with Lorraine and so on and so on. But they managed to work together. So let's learn from that. I mean, it cannot be so difficult to trust a little bit each other. And this is an example of a consortium. We are working here for different association companies, but with the same purpose. Right. So let's look in the same direction.
Now, I happen to know that they're going to start screening a Ken Loach film here in about 40 minutes, and we're going to be ejected fairly promptly. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, so
We
have, with a few minutes we have, so.
By the way, sorry,
Yes.
because we have people from non-EU countries in the room. We have an agreement with the European Union. ETC has members from non-members of the European Union, and the opposite way around. And when we talk about the EU-China Tourism Year, it means that it includes also all ETC members which are not EU members, including Switzerland, including Norway, including Serbia, including San Marino, including Montenegro, and so on. So just for, if you have businesses in any of those countries, these countries will be transported also in the project. It's just a clarification.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. So, we have a few minutes for a few questions. and I think we have microphones ready. So don't be shy. This is a good opportunity.
We've reduced them to catatonia.
It looks like, yeah.
Let me ask something. If you were up to come to China with us for the B2B matching event, what would be your expectations also? What would you like to see there? Because that will help us also to build a better program for you. Let's do it like with the Chinese. We should ask people what they want also. No?
Yes.
20 minutes, come on.
No, we have. Yeah, but we can. If there are no questions, with great respect.
There is a question.
David Tarsh.
Please, I
I help out ETOA with media relations, so a controversial question. It seems to me that one of the biggest challenges we have in attracting Chinese tourists to Europe is a political one. We seem to have a wave of xenophobia and populism sweeping across the world and sweeping across Europe. Do you think that some of the action we should be taking should be political to change the mindsets of the general public within Europe and counter the xenophobia that may be getting in the way?
Wolfgang.
I should answer that.
Yeah. You
Well, I think, thank you very much for the question. Yeah, unfortunately, we all have to share your observation. It is true that in so many countries you win votes with being xenophobic. I would say from our research, from our observation, that Chinese are normally less seen from this point of view, that this is rather seen that this is, of course, going to the rather against the Muslim world than against the Chinese world, and that the Chinese, in the perception of many host countries, are rather seen, or these are the clever guys, and these are the guys who come here as investors. It's rather that they're maybe a little bit feared that they will overtake us, and they're working so hard, and well, the American version is they take the jobs away or something like that. But I think that the xenophobic impulses are not so much going against the Chinese visitors compared to others. I mean, it is a bad thing that they're existing at all. But and also from the Chinese point of view, from the visitors' point of view, it is rather, as Jacopo also had one slide, safety, which is the main concern, rather than being attacked on racial grounds or something like that. So I think there's not, from the customer's point of view, there's not a perception that we are anti-Chinese, even though they are always very afraid of that. And so this is something there. So this point to say, well, we are welcoming Chinese, this is exactly the point to actively counteract towards their fears that they might be treated second best because they look different. So how much this can be done politically? Poof. I mean, I think hopefully everybody in this room will be happy if we find a reason how to fight this wave for any reason, not only because of Chinese tourism.
I think there is a lot of noise there, but out of this noise you have to take also the signals. Huh? Now, politics is all of us. Don't blame anybody. Like we had. Thank you, Attila, for coming here. The Wall Bridge Tourism was a politically driven, initiated project.
Correct.
Thank you to Mr. Wei Hei, which is a strongest advocate not only of this project but of tourism. So politics is also doing a lot for tourism. There are, of course, a couple of issues. But again, I think, coming back to my words before, there is an author in Spain called Miguel de Unamuno who says, if you want to fight against nationalism, read and learn. And if you want to fight against xenophobia and racism, travel. And this is, what we want. We need to create more reach. I think there is a huge lack of knowledge about China. My impression is every time that I go there, I feel smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It's a country that gives you a feeling that it's going to eat you. because it is not in size big, not in population big, but also in thinking they are bigger than us. And the young people there are learning much more about Europe than the Europeans themselves. And I get very surprised when I see the travelers in our destinations here, with cell phones or without them, that they know much more than we do about them, the destination. And this is symptomatic. European symptomatic problem that we need also to change our minds here. And again, if we want to come into David Tarr's points, all these kind of xenophobic problems at a political level, or or racism and stuff like that, I think we need to educate more people, but also our own people. Huh? Starting with with people close to you, your office mates, and stuff like that. It's something we tend in Europe always to give the responsibility to the next one. And say, okay, I'm fine. Someone will do that. Or the classic thing, Brussels. Brussels is the scapegoat for everything. And I remember that normally when the decisions are taken, every country is present there. You vote in yes or no, or discussing or putting things. So again, we need to make an exercise of responsibility. You cannot achieve things without taking any risk, yeah, I mean, it's a political problem, yes, but I think politics come from polis. Polis is the people,
Yes.
My Pennyworth, and I now realise that this is the last statement before we need to go upstairs for drinks, is the good news.
It's the British way.
Is that we, about 10 years ago, we did a survey in China on what their opinion of Europeans were. And the general perception can be summarised that if they had to characterise Europe, they'd characterise Europe as a man, late middle-aged, very old-fashioned and racist, faintly racist. The nearest person we could think to typify this was Alf Garnett. So they look at us as a sort of Alf Garnett figure, who is an English television character from the 60s and 70s, who was an East End racist, effectively. And I wonder whether we should do that again, just to see what our perception is now, what their perception of us is now. I think it may have changed, but I think old-fashioned would still play a part in it. And I don't think, I mean, the beauty of what's happening at the moment in China is that consumers are now forming networks on social media lines. The business-to-business activity is exploding, and the politics is trying to play catch-up. So you're watching something occur in China which is almost independent of party control. And this is a major change in the way in which China functions and thinks about itself. As I said earlier, what will be interesting is not what happens in the politics, but what happens in consumers and how they feed information off one another.
So if I would have to put into one word, well, we have been working for a number of different destinations in Europe, and to combine the perception, I think Europe would be, in one word, described as a museum.
Right.
So very interesting, but yeah, falling behind.
Okay, that's it.
And with this, I think you heard the magic word drinks already. So I want to join Eduardo in thanking all those behind the scenes who have made all this possible today. So the teams of ETOA and also of ETC. I also, of course, want to thank all our distinguished guests and speakers for the valuable presentations they did. But I think, not the least, I have to thank all of you in the audience for coming here, for spending half a day, and hopefully having learned something and having been listening to these ideas of private-public partnership. I see some waving hands up there.
There is still...
Yeah, there is a question.
Okay, so...
very quick.
So remember that.
Very quickly, we are thirsty. Thank you for the presentation. Eduardo, may I respond to your invitation? If you organize the B2B activity
Yes,
the 9th of May, can you organize before the B2B a breakfast for the Chinese to educate them how to do business with European people, and the same for the European people, how to do business with the Chinese? Because if we have the B2B during the full day, by my experience, sometimes we have a gap between the two culture, and we cannot achieve to the business goals if we cannot understand how to do business with them. So could be which to organize that kind of breakfast education.
Very good point. You know, we will take that very into account. I think it's, you know, if we don't know even how to communicate, there's no way to make it.
Thierry, that's a good point, well taken.
Yes,
There's
okay.
another there's loads of questions now.
Now, okay. Now, okay.
Crikey.
You're not thirsty, obviously. Very good.
Hello, João, speaking here from the Netherlands. One issue I found is quite important to say is to prepare the staff as well, speaking Chinese. So if people are coming, which already received them, of course, is to have staff at hotels, restaurants, museums, speaking also their own language. And I think we forgot to say that as well.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yes, and please. So maybe just a quick comment on this one. I think there are, as usual, there are two levels. So one is, it is very useful and not very complicated to have those people on the front line being able to speak a few words. So to say ni hao and huan ying, and so to show that they try to be polite to the Chinese customers. So without knowing more than 10 words. This already makes a big difference from a Chinese point of view.
But it's also very important to get them to say the words properly.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And then, of course, if you have enough business to sustain employees, then, of course, have somebody or several people who can speak proper Chinese. But I think the first steps, even if you only have a limited number of Chinese customers until now, the first step, at least to show that you're going the extra mile, which is, of course, not making a big difference on practical terms, but showing your engagement for the market, this is certainly a very good idea.
I think a smile is a good begin.
Yes.
And don't forget that there are more English speakers in China than there are in the UK.
Hi, my name is Sasha, Happy Tours. We have a small office in Shanghai, and I have a question. The workshop, maybe I overheard it, is going to be in Shanghai or Beijing, or can it be in both places? Because then it would make a roadshow, actually, because the travel communities are very different. In Shanghai is the biggest, but Beijing is close behind, and politics are there, and so on. So I think at least these two places would be good, if not second-tier cities, Guangzhou, and so on.
The short answer is the first one will be in Shanghai on the date specified. It's possible that there may be more workshops taking place later on in the year and earlier the following year as part of the 2018 Year of Tourism. Eric can say something.
On this, it's not a possibility. It will happen. So we have different actions. So world-rich tourism is a contract signed, but they're evaluating another contract with more than €4 billion. Most of them will happen in China, around China. So there will be up to between 5 to 7 further events. This is the first wave.
Thank you. That's a brilliant answer.
I'll just repeat what Eric said. There will be more events in China to be announced, I think is the right way of phrasing it. Okay, can I just, Mr. Chairman, do you mind if I just step in? Because I know we have to leave. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had lots of thanks up until now. A thank from me and Eduardo to Wolfgang for chairing it so ably.
Pleasure.
Thank you for sitting here so patiently. Thank you to the Barbican for providing us with this space. Thank you, Eric, for coming all the way from Brussels and giving such a wonderful speech at the beginning. Thank you to the Parliament as well, Attila, that was a wonderful contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We need to leave. The drinks are on the 4th floor. See you up there. Thank you.